we have a new development in the race for Michigan Senate. That being that Governor Gretchen Whitmer has officially backed Haley Stevens in the contested Democratic Senate primary, according to an article from NBC Today. So, what does this mean, and how does this race play out going forward, given this new development? Well, if you don't know already, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is a pretty popular governor from the state of Michigan, and has won in the state not only in 2018 when Donald Trump was president the first time by 9.6%, but in 2022 when Joe Biden was president by 10.5%. Fairly popular amongst voters in the state, and ultimately a very big influential figure in Michigan politics, and one that you certainly want that of their endorsement. So huge news for Haley Stevens in this Democratic Senate primary that's set to take place in about a week and a half. And what does it mean going forward through this next week and a half? And will Abdul Assad be able to fight back against this new development and still win this Democratic primary? Well, if we go over to the prediction as far as polling goes, we have Abdul Assad ahead in polling multiple times. I mean, of course, we had the development of McMorrow, who left this race just a couple weeks ago, and Abdul Assad since then has continuously led in polling. Of course, there's been a few polls where Haley Stevens has led, but this new development of Haley Stevens receiving this endorsement from that of Governor Gretchen Whitmer is very substantial and means something going forward for the next week and a half. But how much does it mean? Will it mean enough to put Haley Stevens over the top? That's just the question. If we go over to the poly market betting odds, of course, today, since this new announcement, Abdul Assad has about a 66% chance of winning this Democratic primary, to Haley Stevens sitting at about 35% chance of her winning this primary overwhelmingly. So, what does that mean compared to maybe, say yesterday or the day before? Well, Abdul Assad was sitting at about 80%. And since this news has broke, his margin has substantially shrunk. And that's going to, in my opinion, only continue. While Haley Stevens certainly has her fair share of people who do not support her, Abdul Assad being this more progressive candidate who Democrats are really looking at as an opportunity to go further to the left, Haley Stevens is a more moderate candidate, and it's not very shocking, shall I say, that Gretchen Whitmer decided to endorse Haley Stevens in this race. The question is, was it too late? Can Haley Stevens still pull out a victory in the state and win overwhelmingly to go on to the general election? So, with that said, I mentioned earlier that Mallory McMorrow dropped out of this race that happened on July 5th of 2026. So, like I said, just a couple weeks ago. And since then, the polling's been kind of mixed, but overwhelmingly, in multiple polling, it's been favorable to Abdul Assad. So it'll be interesting over the next few days to see if this announcement of Gretchen Whitmer endorsing Haley Stevens, if that will substantially help Haley Stevens overwhelmingly and be able to kind of push her over the top, shall I say, to this general election, where she would then face former candidate for Senate in 2024, Mike Rogers. Of course, he actually lost that race back in 2024. If we go back, we can see that he barely lost, by 0.34% to Alyssa Slotkin. But ultimately, Slotkin won that race and is currently the senator from Michigan. So if we go back to 2020, the last time this race specifically was up, that had Gary Peters up by 1.7% back in 2020, won this race. And this was on the same ballot that Joe Biden won the presidential race overwhelmingly with 306 electoral votes, winning Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia. So, what does this mean in 2026 in an environment that's expected to be pretty favorable towards Democrats? Well, let's go back to our Vote Hub tally. And we'll see where the Michigan Senate race is sitting, with Democrats having about a 70% chance of winning this seat, with about a 3.4% margin. This, of course, according to VoteHub. So we talked about this yesterday with the main Senate race, but today focusing on the Michigan Senate race, seeing about a 70% chance of winning, which is pretty substantial for an open Senate race, but also not that surprising for a Senate race that's currently in the Democratic in the Democratic Party's pocket. All they have to do is retain that, but ultimately the retirement of that of Peters is going to leave them in a different type of position, having to choose between these Democrats in the primary, of course, with Haley Stevens and Abdul Assad, having that as an opportunity for Republicans. I mean, of course, if Abdul Assad ends up winning this primary, this is going to be an opportunity for Republicans to push the idea that Abdul Assad is too far to the left, that Michigan voters will not want that. But ultimately, I still think that the Democratic Party has the upper hand here. I mean, we're in a Democratic environment. A Democratic wave, shall I say, is expected, and it would be very shocking if Mike Rogers was able to win this race, even with a candidate like Abdul Assad. Of course, we'll have to see where this goes forward because, like I said moments ago, this race has substantially changed since this announcement that Governor Gretchen Whitmer is going to endorse Haley Stevens. But at this point, still Abdul Assad sitting in a positive net gain for winning this Democratic primary in just a couple of weeks from now. Well, technically about a week and a half from now. So with that said, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe Abdul Assad will still be able to pull this through, or do you believe this endorsement from Gretchen Whitmer and prominent moderate Democrats is going to be able to keep Haley Stevens in the running and ultimately land her as the Democratic Party's nominee for the Senate? Of course, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching.